I want to talk to you about that guilty verdict that we saw with Sam Bankman-Fried just about 6 days ago. But before I get your reaction to that, let's go through a little bit of your journey to explain to viewers who might not fully have been familiar with your experience how you went from actor to activist. Right? I mean, we saw this period during the pandemic when so many people got interested in cryptocurrency, decided to take a gamble on it, see what this was all about. And I'm wondering how that happened for you. Like, when was the first moment you got curious about cryptocurrency and decided to start investigating, seeing what this was all about?
Thank you, Eamon, and it's great to see you again. It all started for me with an experience that I think many of your viewers can relate to. A friend of mine came to me, an old friend, and said, I should buy Bitcoin. The price was rising. This was late 2020, early 2021. And I thought about it. But I remembered that my friend, who I love dearly, had given me terrible financial advice when I was in my 20s. He'd encouraged me to invest in a stock that was a little bit shady. We lost some money. And I have a degree in economics. I hadn't used my degree in 20 years because I've been working in Hollywood, and it's the last thing that people want to hear about around the craft service table is the dismal science. But I dusted my degree off, and I looked at these things that were calling themselves currencies that to me weren't actually currencies. One of the things that almost anyone knows about money, currency, is that you can use it to buy stuff. And yet cryptocurrencies were more of an investment, it seemed. People were putting money into them, hoping to make money off of them through no work of their own. But they were unregulated, unlicensed investments, more or less. That seemed very dangerous to me. So it set me off on this wild 2-year journey that's culminated in the book that I wrote this summer, came out this summer, Easy Money, and testifying in front of Congress, and actually sitting in person in the courthouse, in the courtroom, and watching Sam Bankman-Fried be convicted of one of the largest financial frauds in American history.
So did you actually buy crypto when that friend advised you early on, your first experience? I mean, how much money did you put in if you did?
No, I never bought crypto. I actually bet against it. Initially, I lost some money, but in the end, I actually made a little bit of money. It's funding a documentary about cryptocurrency and fraud that I'm working on currently.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So let's fast forward to your experiences over the past week or so. You have met Sam Bankman-Fried. You interviewed him for the book about a year and a half ago. You spent, I think you said, about an hour with him in Manhattan at one point. And then we see this conviction. Tell me where you were when he was convicted, what your experience was in that moment.
Sure. I wasn't in the courthouse that day in the courtroom. It actually happened so quickly. It only took the jurors, I think, about 4 or 5 hours to convict him on all 7 counts. So it was a little bit shocking, quite frankly.
It was pretty fast because
on Monday.
I remember last week we were actually on standby covering it as reporters for CNBC, and we were on alert. And our whole process internally was, we could be on alert for hours and hours and hours, and all of a sudden it was like the jury's back. We have a decision. Let's go. And so we just broke into coverage with live breaking news coverage going late into the night that night.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, I was in the courthouse, half a dozen days at least, sitting on the 3rd row with a direct eye line towards Sam, towards the witness stand, whoever happened to be on there. So I watched Sam, particularly on cross-examination, which is, most likely where his fate was sealed, because crypto has sort of existed as a story, right? Fueled by expensive celebrity campaigns, a lot of hype, a lot of misinformation, and a lot of lying. But in a court of law, of course, the rubber hits the road. And so when the assistant U.S. attorney was asking him if he made this statement, or if he sent this tweet, or if he, sent this signal message or email, he didn't want to answer the question, but they had all the evidence there to present to the jury that Sam had been lying. And running, a massive fraudulent scheme, was well aware of what he was doing. And I wish I could say Sam's a one-off. Sam is the only bad actor in crypto, but we know now that is far from the truth. In fact, although I'm sure there are people that are well-intentioned in crypto, the key players have some seriously murky histories, and if I were to bet, there is more to come.
Yeah, I'm sure you haven't seen it yet, but we just wrapped up a documentary that's out in the past couple of weeks on one of the biggest crypto thefts of all time, and Jimmy Zhang, the man who pulled off that theft. It was ultimately about $3 billion worth of crypto that he stole from the Silk Road in the early days of the Silk Road, and just kind of rode that for a decade, eluding capture the whole time. And what we discovered in our documentary on Jimmy Zhang was that he was one of the Bitcoin OGs. He was one of the original contributors to the code that created Bitcoin in the first place. And then he goes on to become one of the biggest Bitcoin thieves of all time. And it does give you the sense that there is this sort of element of larceny sort of at the heart of the Bitcoin story, going all the way back to the original coders who were involved in creating it in the first place. That was the takeaway from our documentary, for me anyway. But I want to ask you about your two experiences with Sam Bankman-Fried, right? Because you interviewed him sort of in July of 22, I believe. So that was at sort of the peak of his fraud before he was caught. Then you see him on the witness stand. You're eyeball to eyeball with him, or at least in direct line of sight with him. Were those two different versions of Sam Bankman-Fried? How was he different on the stand than he was with you at the height of his fraud?
That's a great question. I'm actually going to use my experience as an actor here. Sam was playing a character. All con men need to play characters. In his case, the character he was playing was the eccentric genius, the quantitative wonderkin California kid, son of Stanford law professors, who was leading this innovative industry into the future and was going to make crypto safe and accessible for the American public. So that was the character. And he had the wild hair, and he wore, a T-shirt and cargo shorts and sneakers, sort of as if to give off the vibe that he was just too brilliant to care about his appearance, right? He didn't have time for such trivial matters. And then you cut to the courtroom, and of course he's not wearing cargo shorts and a T-shirt in court. He's wearing an ill-fitting suit, a drab purple tie, and his hair is cut. And it was almost as though he had lost his power. He looked like just another supposed financial whiz kid who had defrauded his customers. There's been many of them over the years. They're certainly not unique to crypto. But I think the story of Sam Bankman-Fried, crashed headfirst into the wall of reality. When I interviewed him last summer, I was struck by how he struggled over some very basic questions. One of the questions I started with, was what does crypto do? Give me one thing that it does better than anything else that's already doing it. And he couldn't really answer that question. He said remittances, sending money overseas. Well, I had just come from El Salvador, which is the only country in the world that's trying to use crypto as real money. And it's not working. If it were to work for remittances, it should work in El Salvador. A quarter of their economy is money, Salvadorans living in the United States, sending it home. So if crypto could work for remittances, it should work in El Salvador. But less than 2% of remittances use the system. It's now less than 1%. So I told Sam, baloney. That's not true. I just went there. And he pivoted, and we went around and around. There were many more iterations of this same basic concept, asking him a simple and straightforward question and getting borderline nonsense in return. I left that meeting deeply worried. This was the summer. Crypto had already fallen quite a bit, but I felt like there was more to come. And sure enough, there was.
Yeah. We only have a couple of minutes left. I want to get two questions in, if I could, for you. One is, obviously, this is a financial television program here. So what is your advice to viewers just generally about sussing out an investment where there might be fraud or whether it might be legitimate? The old advice is if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Is it as simple as that? And then the last thing I want to ask you before we go is what's next for you? But answer the advice question first, if you could.
Sure. Well, it's exactly what you said. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There are resources available should anyone be interested. If you go to the SEC's website, there's a page devoted to Ponzi schemes, the 7 red flags for Ponzi schemes. Crypto checks off 5, arguably 6 of the 7. They include unregistered, unlicensed, if something's not a registered or licensed investment, if it's being traded through an unregistered or unlicensed exchange, that was FTX. Guaranteed returns. A lot of these crypto products offer you, a guaranteed extraordinary return with, theoretically no risk. That's impossible. as anyone with any financial education knows, you can't guarantee above market returns without risk. So the red flags were numerous when it came to crypto.
Yeah.
When it comes to sort of practical advice that I would give folks, just use your common sense. Use your common sense and think, I know FOMO, fear of missing out, is a powerful motivator for people to gamble with their money, but you need to understand that's exactly what it is. It's just gambling. You might win, you might lose. In crypto, you're far more likely to lose.
Ben, they're giving me the hook here. We just have a couple of seconds left, but give folks a sense of what's next for you. You're at this incredible pivot point in your career. You've done Hollywood, you've done activism, you've now written a book with a co-author. What's next for you? Are we going to see more investigations of crypto, more books, more TV series? Where are you going?
The next place I'm going is a documentary on cryptocurrency and fraud, which includes an interview with Sam Bankman-Fried on camera. So
fantastic.
I think people will be very interested to see that.